is such a big deal for us is because we have animals. So obviously our indoor animals, the dogs, need to be able to go outside periodically throughout the day. And then we've got outdoor animals, but it is currently here we go, 81 degrees in South Lake, Texas. I don't see much of a chance of rain in the forecast, but I think over the course of the weekend, we're prepared to expect some notifications on the phone turned down. And I think we have a fun show set up for today. I'm not going to do the wheel, believe it or not, but I mean, it would have worked with a wheel, but I want to try now just going in the order that I have everything set up in the studio here and my cheat sheets for information about everything that's happening. And the way it'll work is that I will show you a short video of some kind that just gives you a little snippet of what we're going to talk about, some of the facts about it. And then I'll go a little deeper into it. And after we've done that, then I'll share with you what my take is on it. And I encourage you in the chat to let me know what you think, what you believe. Thanks for being part of the live crew if you're watching while we're actually live. And if you're part of the rewatch crew after the stream ends today, thank you for that also. Yeah, Richard said the music's kind of loud. Okay, I've got the music turned down. I'm a loud talker anyway, but I don't want it to be difficult for you to hear what's happening. So, without further ado, these are not in any particular order. I mean, obviously I'm going to go in the order that I have them set up, but I do feel like it's going to be a given that when you see these first couple of ones I'm going to share, they're pretty big ones. And I tried to pick some things that I felt like everybody was at least familiar enough with that when we talked about it today, you wouldn't be saying, what is she talking about? I've never heard of that. Usually I like to share things with you that maybe you've never heard of or seen before. But for today, I thought, let's do some tried and true conspiracy theories that most people have an opinion about, whether they share it openly or not, and let you do some thinking. Is that better? What? The music is still too loud. Have you caught up to when I turned it down yet? What did I just say on the thing? So Richard's watching. Hear what I'm saying? Okay, yeah. Turn down some more then. Okay, we'll give this a little bit of time to catch up so that Richard can do another music test for me. And I'll turn down my percent volume again. Oh, okay. It's already down to 0%, so it may just be the volume itself. Did it just stop? Hello? It's still loud? I can turn off the music if I need to. But I kind of like to have something going on in the background because it just keeps the energy up, at least for me. I'm going to pull up another window too. The music is still playing? Okay, well I just turned off the music, so let me know if it let me know if it turned off.
Okay, that's good. Whatever you did.
I turned it off. I just completely turned it off. All right, if that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do, because there's too much fun stuff, I think, for us today for you guys to miss it just because you can't hear. Okay. All right, so let's get started with our first one. I'm not going to tell you what they are before they come because you'll see what they are as soon as I play the little video for them.
July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong takes that legendary step onto the moon. But what if it was all a setup? Conspiracy theorists have a field day with this. Look at the flag. It's waving, but wait, there's no air out there. How is that even possible? Then there are those shadows. They don't match up. Different angles? Could it be there was more than one light source, like a Hollywood studio? And let's talk about the landing. No blast crater? Shouldn't the lunar module have kicked up dust? It's bizarre, right? But hold on. NASA says it's all about physics. With no atmosphere and uneven terrain, things look different in low gravity. What about the photos? Some claim they're too perfect. But think about it. This was a monumental moment, and the best technology of the time was on display. So, what's the truth? A breathtaking achievement for mankind. As you ponder, remember, each detail fuels the debate. Was it reality or just a well-crafted illusion? The moon might hold the answers, but what do you believe?
Okay, so what do you believe about the 1969 moon landing? I'll start off by telling you that I was, not that I was there, I wasn't on the moon, but that summer, all the kids, we got to go up to the school because the school had TVs set up for the kids to all watch together, or families that didn't have TVs. I think I've shared with you guys before, that's right around the time we got a TV, but I don't remember having a TV at that time. So we went up to the school and watched it there with other kids and other families, and it was just awe-inspiring to me. It was, you know, I would have been just shy of 7 years old, and it was like a movie. It was like a fantasy movie, not in the way that the conspiracy theorists believe that it's a movie. And some of the things I learned that were new to me as I was researching for today's show, one of the big ones is that the cameras that were used to take photos and videos from the moon were left on the moon. Like, I can't even imagine how much the cameras probably cost, because I know a lot of them had to be specially designed to withstand the conditions of space and no atmosphere and radiation and all of those things. But the cameras were left there. I mean, they took like rolls of film out of the cameras to bring back and develop the film, but they left the cameras there. I didn't know that until I was researching for the show today. And I don't know why this didn't occur to me, but I also learned that part of the conspiracy for some people is that they believe that we didn't go to the moon, but all of this was filmed in Antarctica. And, you know, I got some theories about Antarctica too. We're not going to talk about them, but I didn't make that connection for the moon landing and the hoax conspiracies about the moon landing. But first, I thought I would share with you what I want to do is kind of give you a list of things that sort of support the conspiracy, you know, support what the conspiracy theorists believe about the conspiracies that we're going to talk about today, and then a list of things that support the official explanation or narrative or, you know, government story about whatever it is we're going to talk about today. So regarding the moon, the 1969 moon landing hoax conspiracy, some people believe the landing was filmed on a soundstage, and that's the one I had always heard. That's why it didn't occur to me that we might have done something in a remote part of, you know, Earth to shoot it. Possibly directed by Stanley Kubrick, I've heard that, due to alleged visual inconsistencies in the footage, such as the American flag appearing to wave despite the lack of an atmosphere. Another part of what people believe as far as why they think it's a conspiracy has to do with shadows and lighting issues. Conspiracists argue that the way shadows fall in the photos suggests the use of multiple light sources, implying studio lighting rather than the single light source of the sun. And then number 3 for why people think there's a conspiracy has to do with missing stars. The lack of visible stars in moon landing photos has led some to claim that NASA omitted them to cover up a staged production. There's also radiation concerns that contribute to conspiracy theorists' beliefs in a conspiracy. Skeptics assert that astronauts could not have survived the Van Allen radiation belts without lethal exposure. And then number 5, the lack of crater under the lunar module. Some claim the lunar module should have created a large blast crater beneath it upon landing, yet no such crater is visible. Number 6, unreliable technology. Doubters argue that 1960s technology was too primitive to safely transport humans to and from the moon. I have heard that the technology that existed then that was used for this mission was not as sophisticated as your everyday smartphone. So there's that. And then number 7, moon rocks and retroreflectors. While NASA provides moon rocks and retroreflectors as evidence of the landings, skeptics suggest these could have been obtained or placed by unmanned missions. And then regarding the Antarctica theory, the people that think that we didn't film it on a soundstage, we filmed it in Antarctica. Some conspiracy theorists claim that the moon landing was filmed in a remote, desolate area of Antarctica, not on the moon. And why Antarctica, you might ask? It's remote and hard to access. The harsh, barren landscape of Antarctica is, with its snow and ice, could theoretically resemble the lifeless gray surface of the moon. Isolation. The idea is that Antarctica's remoteness and extreme environment would make it an ideal location for filming a faked moon landing away from prying eyes. And then there's the hiding in plain sight concept. Some proponents argue that Antarctica was a perfect cover-up because it was far from public scrutiny and highly restricted in terms of international access. I think it's still really hard to go there. Like, I don't think you can just book a trip there, can ya? Anybody know? Has anybody been to Antarctica? Anybody planning to go to Antarctica? And so the arguments are that a harsh environment as a cover, since both Antarctica and the moon are inhospitable to life and hard to access, theorists suggest it would be easier to simulate a moon landing on Earth where NASA could have complete control over the environment. The terrain is similar. Some argue that certain landforms in Antarctica, such as the ice plains and high-altitude mountains, resemble the moon's surface, allowing NASA to film the landing without needing to travel to space. And then the secrecy in general around Antarctica. There are real restrictions and international treaties around Antarctica, leading some to speculate that this was used as a way to cover up the true location of the landing. Okay. But the Apollo missions brought back actual lunar rocks studied by scientists around the world and placed retroreflectors on the moon's surface. These can still be measured today using lasers. Antarctica doesn't have these. Thousands of people were involved. The conspiracy would require a massive cover-up involving astronauts, scientists, engineers, and even other countries. It's unlikely that such a vast operation could be kept secret for more than half a century. We have satellite images from various space agencies like China, India, and the European Space Agency showing the Apollo landing site, or the Apollo landing sites. These photos show evidence of the lunar landers and equipment that wouldn't be found in Antarctica. And Antarctica is accessible to certain people, especially scientists. Hey, Connie Cleary, thanks for stopping in. Especially scientists. The idea that a major government operation could keep something like that entirely secret, especially with modern technology, is far-fetched. So some things that support a moon landing conspiracy, or the theory that it was a hoax, have to do again with the strange shadows and lighting, that waving flag and no stars in the photo. But the scientific explanations for those things are that non-parallel shadows mean uneven terrain. Shadows look off because of the moon's bumpy surface, slopes, and perspective distortion in the wide-angle camera lens. Think of how shadows bend around hills or valleys on Earth. It's the same concept. Well-lit objects in shadow equals light reflecting off the lunar surface. The moon dust is highly reflective. Think chalky gray-white. It bounces light onto shadowed areas like a giant soft light reflector. And then the no stars in the sky is due to exposure settings. The cameras were set to capture bright daylight conditions on the moon's surface, not faint stars. The stars were too dim to show up under those exposure levels. And then only one light source, the sun, is consistent with physics. All lighting matches what you'd expect with a single powerful light source and natural reflectivity. No studio lights were needed, just harsh, unfiltered sunlight and physics. And the retro reflectors that were placed on the moon by Apollo missions, again, you can still bounce lasers off of those today. Thousands of independent photos, video analyses, and satellite images from other space agencies like Japan and India confirm the landing sites. And in conclusion, the Antarctica moon landing fake location thing is definitely a fringe conspiracy that doesn't hold up under scrutiny. But I don't know yet what I think about whether or not we really went. So here's the part we're going to do after I've shown you all that and read you all the little facts and things about, you know, whichever conspiracy we're talking about, is I'll share with you what I think. So I spent most of my life, again, just awestruck by that moon landing. I saw that at a very impressionable age. I'm fascinated and interested in outer space and space travel. I'm a sci-fi junkie, and all of that stuff is right up my alley. It wasn't until I was, you know, an adult, obviously, that I heard that there were people that didn't think we really went, and I just brushed it off. I didn't really think about it much. But there are some things that make me question it. There are definitely some things that make me question it. One of those does have to do with that Van Allen radiation belt. I don't know if any of you have seen, there's a video that's gone around social media, and it's some technical advisor or engineer that's talking about the Orion space program that's supposed to be in our future to take people outside Earth's orbit and do outer space missions. And he stresses in that video that I've seen that one of the biggest challenges they have is figuring out a way to get humans through the Van Allen radiation belt, because it's so powerful and deadly that no one would survive it. Okay, so am I the only one that doesn't understand if in 2020 whatever that video was put together and somebody, you know, started telling us about the Orion program, if this much after the 1969 moon landing, that's a problem, and we didn't have the technology, I don't know that we even had all the materials then that we have now. How did that happen? How was that possible? There's another video I've seen where an International Space Station crew is being interviewed just for, you know, PR, and the astronaut makes a comment about one of the purposes of the International Space Station and the space shuttle and the stuff that we're doing now is to eventually get to a point where we can travel outside Earth's orbit. And he specifically says, because right now we're limited to that. And I thought, what? And it's a current thing. Now, I know you can't believe everything you see on the internet. You can't believe everything I'm telling you today. I'm just sharing what I've learned and what's out there and then what I think about it. But some of what I've seen really does make me question whether or not we went. But here's the thing that's really, really been gnawing at me for probably the last 25 or 30 years regarding the moon landing. Many of you are probably familiar with the very famous photo called Earthrise that the astronauts supposedly took from the surface of the moon looking at the Earth, right? So if you're an astrophotographer, even if you're not an astrophotographer, you can look at the sky at night, right, if the moon is out and it looks a certain size, right? So, if you didn't know, the moon is just over a quarter the size of the Earth, about 2.8, between 2 points, or I mean, about 0.27, so, and 0.28, 27% to 28% the size of the Earth. So, just a little over the quarter the size of the Earth. So, in my mind, if I take a picture of the moon, and we're the same distance from each other, duh. It's not like if you're on the moon, the Earth is a certain distance from you, or if you're on the Earth, the moon is a certain distance from you. They're the same distance from each other, okay? There's one route between them that's a certain distance. That distance may change as we go, you know, wherever we're traveling around in space, because, you know, the orbits aren't always exactly circular, and so at certain parts of the journey around, there may be times when they're a little bit different as far as distance between each other. But the ratio is always the same. The moon will always be about a quarter the size of the Earth, whether it's a mile away from the Earth or a million miles away from the Earth. So I have a little thing for you to explain to you why that Earthrise picture bugs me. I didn't pull it up for today because I want you to do a little bit of research for yourself. But we're going to say that this nasty dog ball, okay, which is just over, it's about 3.5 inches in diameter, okay? And then I have a bottle cap, a water bottle cap, it's actually a little bit bigger than it should be as far as, you know, the math, but it'll still give you an idea of what I'm getting at here. So this, we'll pretend like this is the moon, okay? So there's the Earth and the moon, and right now, you know, they're like on the same plane with each other. So let's say you're on Earth, here's my Earth, and you're looking at the moon, and you take a picture of it. Okay, it's going to look moon size, right? But now let's say you're on the moon. I'm trying out the blur, the background blur on my stream today. I may have to turn it off. You're on the moon, right? And you take a picture of the Earth. Why would the Earth also look moon-sized? Again, the people that say it makes sense will tell you, oh, it's because the Earth is really far away. Right, the Earth is the same far away distance that the moon is from the Earth. So how could an object 4 times as big as another object still look the size of the little object? Yeah, I'm going to turn that background blur off right quick. How does that make sense? Somebody make it make sense for me. This is the difference. If you look at this one from the surface of this one, why does it look the size of this one? Whereas when you look at this one from the surface of this one, okay, it makes sense that it looks like this. So I know there's that whole illusion about if the moon is closer to the horizon, it looks bigger. Anyway, there's either some really challenging math that's beyond my ability to calculate, or something's fishy there. And then the other thing, it doesn't necessarily have to do with the moon landing, but it has to do, again, kind of with this same thing. My difficulty in processing how that picture makes sense and why, you know, I wish I could have figured out a way to like mount these and take a picture. Take a picture of from right behind this ball, looking at this bottle cap, and vice versa, to see what they look like. Because I think what I'm thinking makes sense. But the other part of that is all these amazing space telescopes, the James Webb telescope, the Hubble telescope, that are aimed out at space, and they can take pictures of whole galaxies. Now I know they're composite pictures that are, there's like a program, and the light values and the density values and all of that stuff are get translated into colors and sizes and things like that. I understand that. But why can those things not just turn around and get me a nice picture, one nice picture of the whole Earth in one frame? Because I've heard that any picture you see of Earth, it's composites, it's little pictures. I'm trying to think of what else you could take a picture of, where you would have to take individual pictures. I think it's called stacking. You would have to take individual pictures and then combine them to get the whole thing. And that's what pictures of Earth are. I don't know that there's ever been a picture of Earth where a space telescope just turned around and aimed at Earth and took a picture of the whole beautiful Earth in the one picture. Why is that? And if I'm wrong, if I learn I'm wrong one day, okay, then all of this will make sense. But for now, that's where I stand on the moon landing. I have no idea, but I think there's some questionable elements to it. All right, so that's enough on that one. Let's move to the next one. Again, it's you don't have to be an American. You don't have to be my age or older. You can be anywhere on the earth, and you know what's happening in this picture. But let me let you look at it, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, the assassination of President Kennedy. Let's talk a little bit about that. And let me know in the chat, are you old enough that you were around when it happened? So I had just turned a year old a couple of months before this happened. So obviously I have no direct recollection of it. But it still feels like a big part of my history. And obviously over the years, I've come to appreciate how it impacted Americans and people that were old enough at the time to really process it more than a baby could. And thank you, Texas Born and Raised, for that amazing super chat. You're so good to me. Thank you. But let's talk about the things that support the conspiracy theories around the assassination of President Kennedy. So one of the things that supports the theory is the magic bullet theory. The Warren Commission concluded that one bullet caused multiple wounds in JFK and Governor Connally, changing direction midair. Critics argue this is implausible and suggest multiple shooters. The apparent change in direction of the bullet that killed President John F. Kennedy and wounded Governor John Connally in Dallas on November 22, 1963, has been a central point of debate and intrigue, particularly in relation to the single bullet theory, also known as the magic bullet theory. This theory attempts to explain how one bullet could have caused multiple wounds to both Kennedy and Connally. The official explanation comes from the Warren Commission, which concluded that a single bullet caused all the injuries to both men. And here is an overview of that single bullet, magic bullet explanation according to the Warren Commission. The first bullet fired by Lee Harvey Oswald, who was the alleged assassin, struck President Kennedy in the upper back, exited through his throat, and then went on to strike Governor Connally in the back, causing multiple wounds, including a shattered rib and wrist, and ultimately fracturing his thigh. Now, if you noticed in the video, in the first part, after the car comes into frame, you can see that President Kennedy's already been hit. He's put his hands up. Jackie leans over, and she's tending to him and, asking what's going on, I'm sure. So he had been hit already, and that's the bullet I think they're talking about here that went in through his back and came out of his throat. And then, of course, shortly after that is the bullet that went into his head. The theory asserts that this bullet caused the injuries to both men without changing direction dramatically, although it appears to do so when analyzed from certain angles. So I have heard, and you could see in the video, Governor Connally is sitting on the passenger side of that row of seats in front of JFK. So they're both on the passenger side of the vehicle. It's Pappy shutting the door. They think somebody's knocking. It's Pappy shutting the door. It's fine. It's fine. Never a dull moment. Anyway, so just as far as where they were sitting, just to give you kind of the setup for how the bullet went through one and went into the other, which I know can happen, really, with shooting. The official explanation is that the bullet's trajectory followed a path through both Kennedy and Connally at an angle due to their relative positions in the car. Kennedy was seated directly in front of Connally, with the bullet hitting Kennedy at an angle from the rear right and then continuing to strike Connally, who was seated slightly lower and to the right of Kennedy. Some key details on the bullet's path. The bullet entered the upper back of Kennedy just below his neck and exited through his throat. You girls, stop. Whatever you're doing, stop doing it. What are you doing? Stop. Where's the mute button for the dogs? Serena. Okay, bullet entered the upper back of Kennedy just below his neck and exited through his throat. This is often cited as evidence that the shot was fired from a downward angle, consistent with the position of Oswald in the Texas School Book Depository window. He was like on the 4th floor of that building. And then regarding Connally's wounds, the bullet then continued to travel and struck Governor Connally in the back, exiting his chest, and then continued to injure his wrist and thigh. The trajectory of the bullet must have passed through Connally's body at a different angle, since he was positioned lower and slightly to the right of Kennedy. The change in direction that appears to happen is due to the relative positions of the two men in the car. Connally was sitting at a lower elevation and to the right of Kennedy, so the bullet's path was not a straight line. And then the controversy and perception of a change in direction is explained because skeptics of the single bullet theory often argue that the bullet's path doesn't make sense and suggest that it would have been impossible for a bullet to change direction as it did to cause all of Connally's injuries. The bullet's apparent ability to cause multiple wounds in two different individuals without losing much velocity or deforming significantly is often referred to as the magic bullet. However, ballistic experts and the Warren Commission argue that the trajectory is plausible, considering the positions of both men and the angle of the shot. So that film that we watched, that is the infamous Zapruder film. You've probably seen it. It was a little harder to find a copy that I could share with you than I thought it was going to be. Lots of those are out there to watch, but again, I have to be mindful of potential copyright issues, and there's still a possibility somebody's going to claim something that I put on the stream today. Usually I can easily send a little letter and show the screenshot that this was a Creative Commons video that I shared, but it still means I got to go through some hassle to stay out of trouble. But that was the Zapruder film that shows the moment of impact. Well, I'm not going to talk a lot about the moment of impact, although we will get to some particulars about what was witnessed and whether or not it makes sense here in just a little bit. Provides a frame of reference for understanding the timing and sequence of events. Critics of the official story often point to the lack of immediate reaction from Connally after the first shot, which allegedly struck Kennedy, as an indication that a second shooter might have been involved, but official ballistics evidence supports the idea that one bullet caused all the wounds. The bullet recovered from the park bench near the hospital, often referred to as Commission Exhibit 399, was relatively intact, despite having caused several injuries. It was later examined by forensic experts who concluded that the bullet's condition was consistent with the trajectory described by the Warren Commission. So some of the alternate theories regarding this event are that there were multiple shooters. Stop. Some conspiracy theories claim that the change in direction of the bullet could only be explained if there were multiple shooters involved in the assassination. According to these theories, the bullet's trajectory as described by the Warren Commission wouldn't be possible if only Oswald had been firing from the Texas School Book Depository. Please hush. Thank you. These theories often involve the idea that a second gunman fired from the grassy knoll, I'm sure you guys have heard that term, or other locations near the motorcade route. Some witnesses, including those near the grassy knoll, reported hearing gunshots from areas other than the depository. These conflicting reports have contributed to the ongoing debate about whether Oswald acted alone or if there were additional conspirators involved. Some other elements to the event that, you have to consider are the suspicious deaths and witness contradictions. Some witnesses died under mysterious circumstances, and others gave accounts that conflicted with the official version. For example, some claimed to hear shots from the grassy knoll, not the Texas School Book Depository. And Kennedy did have known powerful enemies. The CIA, after the Bay of Pigs, was definitely not a friend of his anymore. Oh my goodness, if it's not one animal, it's another. I hope you guys can't hear the geese, but they're carrying on about something. So the CIA was on the list of enemies. The Mafia, after Bobby Kennedy cracked down on organized crime, and then the anti-Castro Cubans, who were furious over what they perceived to be a betrayal by President Kennedy. These connections have led to theories of a coordinated hit involving multiple players. So those all were parts of what supports the theory that it was an inside job, or that there were multiple shooters and there were multiple bullets and those things. But here are three things that support the official explanation. Oswald's rifle was found at the scene. Bullet casings matched his gun, and forensic analysis places him at the window from which the fatal shot was allegedly fired. Many eyewitnesses saw or heard shots from the Texas School Book Depository. The Zapruder film and other photos align with the timing and location of Oswald's alleged shots. And Oswald had a history of defection to the USSR. It was called the USSR back then, the United Soviet Socialist Republic. It was not known as Russia back then, but USSR is today Russia. He had a history of defection to the USSR, expressed radical beliefs, and previously attempted to assassinate another political figure. He also fled the scene and killed a police officer shortly after, which doesn't help his case if he wanted somebody to think he was innocent. So, my take on the Kennedy thing. I do have some trouble with the magic bullet theory. And I recently, doing research for today's show, watched a video where a year or so ago, what's the name of the company? It starts with a K. I'll post something in the comments after the video's finished today. I guess I could look at my history. But they did an analysis, and they concluded that it really was not possible for a single bullet to cause all those injuries in President Kennedy and Governor Connally. It just wasn't possible. I don't know why there would be a big deal with the government in their official explanation or conclusions to the case. I don't know why it would be a problem to say, yes, there were, at least 2 shooters, or there were, we don't know who the other one is. We'll never know who all of them were, but there were multiple shooters. Well, I don't know why that would be a big deal. Like, why would that change anything to know that multiple people killed the president? And so part of me also wonders, I mean, on the one hand, I want to say, it may sound kind of morbid, obviously Oswald was not as great a shot as he thought he was if it took more than 1 bullet. So if he came so close that he hit President Kennedy just at the top of his back below his neck the first time, didn't kill him, and then had to shoot again, what kind of a marksman was he? I mean, why would you want to draw attention to yourself? Why would you want to have to shoot twice? And my understanding is the book depository, in relation to where President Kennedy was, it was a clear line of sight. I don't think you could say the motorcade was moving fast. Obviously, I have part of that video I showed you slowed down, but it was a PR thing, and the president was waving at all the people that were there to greet him and kind of celebrate his visit in Dallas. I was born in Dallas, by the way. So it makes me wonder. It makes me wonder why. I mean, I guess I would almost think, if the objective obviously was to kill him, then yes, he had to do whatever he had to do to meet that objective. But more than 1 shot, that just, it makes me wonder several things, because if he really did act alone, and this was his idea, this was not something involving the CIA and the mafia and the anti-Castro, or the Cubans that were mad at JFK, if it was just his idea, he didn't plan well enough, he didn't practice well enough, he didn't make sure his gun was sighted right. I don't know how many screw-ups can you have if you want to be an assassin. But if it was an inside job, if it was the CIA, or why'd they pick him then? And if the objective, again, if it was an inside job, wouldn't it make more sense that they would have a second shooter, maybe a 3rd or 4th shooter at the ready? Let's say Oswald gets discovered up there in the book depository. And I do think there are stories of people that were at the building. I think this may have been a Sunday, so that it wasn't open, but I almost think I've read something somewhere about a janitor or somebody maybe that was there that had either noticed some belongings of Oswald's, or actually saw Oswald. But why, you wouldn't see somebody on the day the president's going to come visit in a place where I think he worked there. And you wouldn't necessarily right away think, oh, what's going to happen? Something awful is happening, right? But let's say he had gotten discovered. Let's say that by whatever means, he wasn't able to take the first shot. If it was a group, if it was the government, then yeah, wouldn't they have other people around that could, walkie-talkie, whatever, earpieces, whatever, and say, hey, I just got caught, or whatever. Number 2, you're going to have to take over. Maybe number 2's the grassy knoll guy. Maybe when the first shot didn't do the job, then one of the other people. There's so much. How is it possible that there's still so much not known? And then all those tens of thousands of pages of sealed documents that were just recently made available. I don't know. How could I even look through all of that and figure anything out? It blows my mind that there could be that much information about a single event. But that's part of what really makes me even more uneasy about it. It's been a long time since the president's been assassinated, even if you're just looking at that one. So it's not something real common. I don't know that we have a lot to go on. There have been a couple of attempts. There's, the Jodie Foster fanatic that tried to kill President Reagan, and then obviously in more recent history. But I don't know. So many questions. And the fact that this was a president that, for the most part, I think he was very well liked and admired, and the people respected him and were happy with him. So what are the odds really that one person, Lee Harvey Oswald, just again on his own would decide, you know what, I don't like this guy. I don't like what he's doing, and I want to go to Russia anyway, so I don't know. It's hard. It's hard any way you look at it, and there will never be a happy ending to that. Let's just hope lessons were learned where they needed to be learned, so that none of us has to live through that at any point in the future. But let's move on from that one now and go to our next conspiracy.
On July 8, 1947, the Roswell incident occurred when the Roswell Army Airfield, ARRAF, issued a press release stating that they had recovered a flying disc from a ranch near Roswell, New Mexico. This event marked the beginning of one of the most enduring UFO conspiracy theories in history. The initial report was quickly retracted by the military, who claimed the debris was from a weather balloon. Despite this, the Roswell incident sparked widespread speculation and controversy, with many believing the government was covering up evidence of an extraterrestrial spacecraft. Over the years, the story evolved, with witnesses coming forward and various theories emerging about what really happened. The Roswell incident played a pivotal role in the UFO phenomenon, leading to a surge in interest in unidentified flying objects and extraterrestrial life. It also contributed to the establishment of the UFO community and numerous investigations into alleged UFO sightings and government cover-ups. The incident has inspired countless books, documentaries, movies, and television shows, cementing its place in popular culture.
Okay, Roswell, the famous Roswell UFO story. Again, you don't have to be into that stuff to at least be familiar with it, I would hope. Of course, again, this is right up my alley. And I did want to pick a bone with whoever made that little video that I found. The Army group was not the ARRAF or whatever he said. It was just the RAAF. It was, it was some other combination of those letters, but that person put in some extra letters that didn't fit. So we're just going to get to some things that support the Roswell conspiracy theory. Again, then we'll end up with some things that mean it probably really did happen the way the officials said it happened. But one of the things that supports the Roswell incident being an alien craft with alien bodies and everything that conspiracy theorists believe about it had to do with the initial response from the military. So initially, the U.S. Army announced that they had recovered a flying disc. I think it was in the newspapers even, but that they quickly retracted that statement, which only made people even at the time wonder, hey, wait a minute, what's going on? But obviously over the years, it's one of the top things that conspiracy theorists point to say, oh, there was a cover-up, because right away, in the excitement of the moment or whatever, the government was saying, we got a disc. We recovered a flying disc. Now, flying disc, we'll talk about here in a minute. Well, I may have it on here already. This just goes on to say that initially, at least their story is that when they used the term flying disc right after the incident happened, it was largely due to a miscommunication and confusion issue at the time, mixed with the extraordinary nature of the event. So the initial press release was on July 8, 1947. The incident happened the day before. A rancher named Mark Brazel discovered strange debris scattered across his property near Roswell, New Mexico. The debris was unlike anything he'd ever seen before, so he alerted the authorities. The military's initial statement on July 8th was that they had recovered a flying disc. Okay, they were the Roswell Army Airfield, RAAF, not ARRAF. I think that's what that video said. This announcement was made by Major Jesse Marcel. You may be familiar with that name if you are into the Roswell conspiracy info. He was a military officer who had gone to the crash site. He's the one that said we recovered a flying disc. The wording of the statement created immediate excitement because at the time the term flying disc was widely associated with UFOs. Duh. However, the military did not fully comprehend the implications of that terminology. So why flying disc, quote unquote? In 1947, the U.S. public had just been introduced to the phenomenon of flying saucers or flying discs following a widely publicized sighting by a pilot named Kenneth Arnold in June of 1947. He reported seeing 9 bright saucer-like objects flying at high speed near Mount Rainier in Washington. The term flying disc had entered the popular lexicon in association with UFOs and was used in the media to describe strange, unexplained flying objects. Phooey. Regarding the misunderstanding and confusion early on, the debris recovered by Brazel was not a flying disc in the sense that people commonly think of when they hear UFO. Instead, it was part of a high-altitude balloon used for Project Mogul, which was a top-secret military program designed to detect Soviet nuclear tests. So they were still not really being upfront about what was happening, even if the story they gave was true. So regarding Major Jesse Marcel, who was one of the first military officers on the scene, he mistakenly thought the materials were something extraordinary as they appeared unfamiliar and strange. At the time, he was likely not aware of what the materials actually were, contributing to the use of the ambiguous term flying disc. Hey, Metal, thanks for stopping in today. Are you guys adding all these things up? Or are you just seeing how many ridiculous things had to have happened already to make the official version make any sense? And then regarding the retraction and the further confusion, the military quickly backtracked on their initial statement and issued a revised release later that day, July 8th, the day after it happened, claiming that the debris was actually a weather balloon, which was a plausible and more conventional explanation. So again, see, they're still not telling the truth if what they're saying later, or what was discovered later, was the truth. This sudden change fueled skepticism and speculation, especially when the press release contradicted itself so rapidly. The abrupt shift to the weather balloon narrative led some to believe that the military was covering something up, and conspiracy theories about UFOs and alien encounters began to form. The flying disc terminology continued to stir up confusion, and the press release itself played a large part in popularizing the idea that the government had recovered an alien spacecraft. Here's a little section on why they called it a flying disc. The military was responding to a cultural moment where UFO sightings were all over the news, and people were already primed to believe in the existence of flying saucers. The military may have initially been confused about what exactly was found and used the common UFO terminology of the time before fully understanding the true nature of the wreckage. All these things. Boy, it's just getting real heavy, all this stuff adding up. And then there could have been an overzealous press officer or some miscommunications on the part of the press. It's possible that the military's press officer may have used the term flying disc as a catch-all. How silly is that? This is absolutely upsetting to me. That seemed like the most likely explanation to explain something strange and unidentifiable. So years later, several witnesses, including former military personnel, claimed to have seen alien bodies or strange materials at the crash site, often describing them as not of this earth. The reports from witnesses, including military personnel who claimed to have seen the bodies at Roswell, were among the most compelling and persistent aspects of the Roswell incident. These accounts have been at the center of UFO conspiracy theories and are often cited as evidence of a cover-up. However, there are several factors that might explain why some witnesses described seeing alien bodies, even if the official explanation was something far more mundane. And here are some of those explanations, those mundane explanations that it might have been. So regarding the witnesses, they obviously would have been experiencing heightened emotions and stress and excitement because of what happened, whether it was something from out of this world or not, even if they were military personnel. They were in a highly charged, emotionally intense situation. The discovery of strange debris in the desert would naturally evoke confusion and anxiety, leading people to misinterpret what they saw under the stress of the moment. In some cases, eyewitnesses may have been influenced by the press coverage of UFO sightings around the same time. These reports were heavily covered in the media, leading some people to believe they were seeing something related to extraterrestrial life rather than ordinary military equipment. And then just the general influence of UFO culture at the time could have played a part. After the famous Kenneth Arnold UFO sighting, which popularized the flying saucer concept, the idea of extraterrestrials and UFOs was deeply embedded in the cultural consciousness, meaning that even if a witness didn't actually see aliens, they might have subconsciously shaped their own memories to fit the UFO narrative because it was so prevalent at the time. And then another possible explanation, and something that the military later admitted to. They did change their story a number of times. I think they're still changing their story even today. In 1997, the U.S. Air Force released a report claiming that the alien bodies witnesses had seen were likely crash test dummies used in high-altitude parachute tests in the 1950s. So it was a flying disc. Oh, no, wait, it's a weather balloon. Oh, no, wait, it's a Project Mogul anti-spy thing. Oh, wait, no, it was a high-altitude parachute test that had crash test dummies in it. They don't even know? Y'all, are you doing the math here for how this is adding up or not adding up? These dummies were dropped from high altitudes to test how parachutes performed at high speeds and altitudes. These dummies were often made of rubber, wax, and other materials that could have resembled human figures, especially when they were found in unusual postures after being dropped. Again, that information was what was put out in 1997, 50 years after the incident. It's possible that some military personnel who had limited exposure to these types of experiments mistook the dummies for alien bodies, especially since they were not widely known to the public at the time. Okay, what happened with Project Mogul? Oh, wait a minute, what happened with the weather balloon? So, regarding witness testimonies and any misinformation that could have happened in that part of the story, some of the witnesses, including the military personnel and civilians, gave detailed accounts of seeing small humanoid figures at the crash site. Major Jesse Marcel, one of the key features of the incident, later mentioned seeing unusual metallic debris and describing the bodies as small and not human, though his later statements were unclear and sometimes contradictory. I'm sure that was not because he chose to do it that way. Of my opinion. I'm supposed to wait till we do all this to tell you that, but I can't help. This is so frustrating to me. Other individuals like Glenn Dennis, a mortician at the time, claimed to have been told by hospital personnel about alien bodies being taken to a military facility. The testimonies from those who reported seeing the alien bodies varied. Some described grayscale or small figures with large heads, while others reported more conventional human-like figures. The differences in the descriptions suggests confusion or embellishment rather than a consistent narrative. Over time, some individuals may have exaggerated or altered their accounts, especially after the story became more public and conspiratorial. Witnesses may have been influenced by each other's stories or by the growing media attention. And then the government's response in all of this, obviously a government, like I would include the military, whose first statements were that this was a flying disc that was recovered, followed by their quick retraction that it was a weather balloon. I'm just about to go down that in the house that Jack built stuff. Just fueled the suspicions that they were hiding something. Secrecy around military operations and tests led to speculation that the government was covering up a UFO encounter. This environment of secrecy allowed for misinformation to spread, and many witnesses came to believe or even claim that they had also seen the bodies as part of that cover-up. Once the Roswell incident became widely discussed and turned into a cultural phenomenon, later witnesses may have been influenced by public narratives of extraterrestrial encounters. So we all know that that's a common psychological thing for some people. Then they want to be on that train also. Uh, Over time, they may have reinterpreted their memories to fit the UFO narrative or simply adopted the prevailing theory because it was so entrenched in popular culture. So, in conclusion, even though there are a lot of testimonies about alien bodies, some of the reasons those might not be accurate are related to psychological factors that led them to misinterpret what they saw, often due to emotional stress, cultural influences, or misinformation. The possibility that some of the alien bodies described by witnesses were crash test dummies. And then the secrecy and misinformation by the government, which just led to general skepticism and confusion and concern that just fed the myths about UFO encounters and alien bodies and such. Despite the varying accounts, no solid evidence has ever surfaced that conclusively proves the existence of alien bodies at Roswell, and the official explanation remains that the crash involved a military balloon. So what just happened to the 1997 report? However, the story of the alien bodies continues to captivate imaginations and fuel conspiracy theories to this day. Regarding that Project Mogul thing that they said at some point in this crazy, convoluted story, conspiracy theorists argue that this explanation came decades later and was conveniently very retroactive. But the most recent and widely accepted explanation is that the debris removed or recovered near Roswell was from a Project Mogul balloon. Again, that U.S. secret intelligence thing to keep tabs on what the Soviets were doing with their nuclear stuff. And this conclusion was officially confirmed by the U.S. Air Force in the 1990s. Let's see. In recent years, former Pentagon official Luis Elizondo has claimed that a secretive government group has been collecting non-human biological remains and technology for over 50 years, including materials related to the Roswell incident. His disclosures have reignited public interest and led to congressional inquiries into unidentified aerial phenomenon. So, a lot of what people reported seeing at the time has been debunked, so to speak. But, I'm not a huge fan of the government anyway. I support our military, but I do have to wonder, especially Jesse Marcel, who made the initial statements about it being an alien or a flying disc. Obviously, if the government didn't want anyone to know that it was a flying disc, and I'm not saying it is, I don't know that I quite believe in that. Part of the reason I don't know if I quite believe in that is that I am on the list of people that would love to have an alien encounter, see a UFO, be taken up in a spaceship or whatever. Again, this is right up my alley, and it doesn't happen. Why do they only come down and take these people that don't want to go, and then they turn into lunatics because of they were abducted or whatever? I mean, that's not legit either. Although there are some that believe that that's a government thing too. But who's to say that story switching by lower ranking military personnel weren't, switched because the higher ranking military personnel said, you get back out there right now and say it was a weather balloon. So you say something. You make up anything else besides what you just said. Now, whether that was the expectation because it really was an alien craft, that's what we may never know. Part of me feels like if it really happened, and if the UFO craze of the 40s and 50s was really, related to extraterrestrial intelligent beings, where'd they go? But another part of me feels like, okay, maybe it was, and if it was real, they took one look at what a crappy job we're doing, taking care of our planet and taking care of each other, and thought, we're not stopping here. I don't want to live here. I'm not staying here. And then they just went on, because if they had the ability to come here from wherever the vast distances were they started from, then I'm sure they could go on to some other planet or system or whatever. Why would they want to hang around here? So maybe we were just the part of the journey at the time back in the 40s and 50s where they were passing through this part of the universe to go wherever the next part of their space trip was going to take them. That's possible, right? If anything that we just heard about in what I just shared with you is possible, that would be possible. So, again, for those that don't know, like, I'm a huge X-Files fan. Huge X-Files fan. And my favorite movie of all time, I've got some favorites, and they're pretty much all sci-fi movies, but my favorite movie of all time is the original 1951, The Day the Earth Stood Still, with Michael Rennie, and, oh my gosh, what's her name? Patricia O'Neill. It was remade. Keanu Reeves is in the remake of that, which, of course, I love that movie because I love Keanu Reeves. But that 1951 movie, that's my favorite. It's always been my favorite. It's always going to be my favorite. The message of the movie is amazing. Anyway, that's not necessarily related to this, except to tell you that these kind of stories, again, I just get really excited about because it's right up my alley. And just like Mulder's poster on the wall in his office down there in the basement, I want to believe there's more than what we have here. And I don't think it would mean anything bad. I don't see that as some kind of huge spiritually significant can of worms or anything. Another of my favorite movies is Contact, the Jodie Foster Contact movie, and one of the lines that her dad says in the movie when she asks about, is there life out there? And the dad says, if there's not, it's an awful waste of space. I guess I kind of see it that way too. But enough of that. Let's move on to our next conspiracy.
They call us crazy, but what if the real insanity is ignoring the truth hidden in plain sight? The sky above isn't just a canvas for nature's beauty, it's a battleground of control. Studies have confirmed that heavy metals like aluminum and barium, known to affect cognitive function, are being found in soil and water samples in alarming quantities. Pilots, meteorologists, and whistleblowers have come forward only to be silenced. Governments claim it's just contrails, yet patent documents openly discuss weather modification programs. So why the denial? What if the clouds above are more than just water vapor, but a slow, invisible manipulation of our very thoughts? Open your eyes before it's too late. Want the truth? Check our bio. Evolve with nature, hack true future.
Yes, I was in the U.S. Air Force for 9 years.
Wow. And you came out and blew the whistle on geoengineering, things that you witnessed were going on. Can you give us the real nutshell?
Absolutely. Basically, I had heard of what many people know as the term chemtrails. And I worked in a job called bioenvironmental engineering. And I thought that was insane. And why would we do something like that? Modify the weather by using hazardous materials in our atmosphere? And actually the process of trying to debunk it or disprove it, I realized it was actually coming right out of my office, as I was one of the people that was approving the chemicals. And it really shook the core of my oath. And I did a lot of sampling, a lot of investigation, and I blew the whistle and I got out. And I've now used my credentials, my oath, and my powers for good to help people understand it's very real. It's now openly admitted. There are multiple forms of weather modification. I specifically found the one of stratospheric aerosol injection.
I hit that button too fast. Chemtrails. Have you seen them? And I think they happen all over the world. So this is not just a U.S. thing, even though, again, the U.S. government is kind of the one pointed to most often by conspiracy theorists as being responsible for them. And I know, I understand enough about physics and whatever other science that is, that means that exhaust from an airplane can sometimes leave a little trail behind it. But I do wonder sometimes when you look up in the sky, I don't know what the math, the ratio is. So if I look up in the sky and there's a plane at 15,000 feet, and it goes from this point of where I'm looking over to this point of where I'm looking, how many miles of that really is in the sky? Because when I've got my hands right here, right, it's only like 7-8 inches. But up in the sky, it probably represents 100 miles or more. So I don't know why there would be a vapor trail that would stay intact so long for over such a vast expanse of the sky. And then there have been times where people will capture images or video of scenes like what's in this picture here, where there's all the crisscrossing things. What are the odds of that? Does it mean there's something about the atmosphere in that one spot in the sky, or that one, it's not one spot, again, this hundreds of miles we're looking at, that all of their plane exhaust suddenly turns into these lines like that? And I want to say that there have been reports, we may get into this now in my notes here, where people will see the contrails and then within a day or something, then it's raining or there's a storm or something. And again, that's part of the conspiracy. That's part of the theory behind the chemtrails, is that in addition to some of the even more nefarious purposes of the chemtrails, that weather modification is a common one. So the contrails, or the vapor trails that I talked about when a plane is just, it's like exhaust coming out of the back of a car, are line-shaped clouds produced by aircraft engine exhaust or changes in air pressure, typically at aircraft cruising altitude several kilometers or miles above the Earth's surface. They're composed primarily of water in the form of ice crystals. Or are they chemtrails? So chemtrails is a modern conspiracy classic. And here is a breakdown that gives you, again, some things that support the conspiracy theory about chemtrails, and then some things that support the scientific explanation about chemtrails. So some of the things that support a chemtrail conspiracy theory are the lingering trails. Some believe that the long-lasting crisscrossing white trails behind planes that are called chemtrails are too persistent to be normal contrails, suggesting they contain unknown chemicals sprayed for secret purposes like weather control or population manipulation. Also, programs like Project Storm Fury, which is a cloud seeding program, which is a legit, that's a verified thing, and declassified experiments such as spraying zinc cadmium sulfide over some U.S. cities during the Cold War give conspiracy theorists historical precedent to believe in covert atmospheric manipulation. And then some reports of seeing strange patterns in the sky associate them with spikes in illness, unexplained environmental effects, or changes in local weather, and those suggest that the trails are unnatural. So regarding that zinc cadmium sulfide that was sprayed during the Cold War, I didn't know about that till I was researching for today's show. It was sprayed over several U.S. and Canadian cities during the Cold War as part of the secret U.S. military experiment, mainly to study how biological or chemical agents might disperse in a real-world environment. So it was purported to have been, harmless stuff, but you could still then trace the paths and the dispersion rates and all of that. It reminds me of a film I watched one time when I went back to renew my license. I was in the dental field for a long time, and I remember watching this video. It was kind of an old video. It was the first time I'd seen it, and I don't know how they did it, but it had to do with infection control and how important it is to clean up after a surgery or after a patient. And if I had a nickel for every temp we ever got in the office that obviously didn't see that movie, and then I would go in and find stuff somewhere that you wouldn't think it was there, but it was there, and this movie showed that using, it wasn't real blood in the film that I watched. It was something to represent what can happen and where stuff can end up during surgery. That's the same concept here, that supposedly they were just using this harmless stuff so that they could see, how does the wind carry it, and what happens if it goes in the water, and does it settle on surfaces, or does it evaporate, all of that stuff. So zinc cadmium sulfide is a fluorescent chemical compound, and it glows under UV light, so it's easy to detect even in just trace amounts. It wasn't actually a weapon. It was just a stand-in for a biological weapon that would mimic the spread of things like anthrax or nerve gas. It was chosen because it had particle size and weight similar to potential biological weapons, so scientists could study how something more dangerous would have spread without actually exposing people to lethal substances. I don't think any of the people in these cities were given a heads up ahead of time, though, that this was happening. Not that I don't know that they could see it. I think it did require UV lighting or something special to detect it, but I don't know, it still bugs me to think that all these secret projects go on and we don't even know they're happening, whether they're harmful or not. So they were testing how far airborne particles would travel, how they'd move through urban areas, wind patterns, and building structures, and how vulnerable cities were to biological or chemical attacks. It happened between the 50s and the 70s, and it says the military conducted over 200 vulnerability tests, including St. Louis, Missouri, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Winnipeg, Canada, San Francisco, New York, Washington, D.C., and some rural and suburban areas also. Some of these tests involved spraying from planes, rooftops, or moving vehicles, often without public knowledge or consent. It says at the time, the military claimed that that compound was non-toxic in the amounts used, but cadmium is a known carcinogen, and later investigations, like a 1997 National Research Council report, concluded that exposure levels were likely too low to pose major health risks, but some risk, especially long-term, couldn't be ruled out. Residents were not informed, and many felt betrayed, leading to public outrage and congressional hearings in the 1990s. So those are some of the things that support the conspiracy theories about chemtrails and their not so friendly objectives. Things that support the scientific explanation is that, number one, they're just contrails, that they're just the condensation trails from that form when hot, humid exhaust from a jet engine hits the cold upper atmosphere. Depending on conditions, humidity, altitude, and wind, they can linger or fade quickly, no chemicals required. Number two, there's no evidence of chemical spraying, like they would tell us. Studies of air and soil samples in areas concerned about chemtrails have not found unusual chemical levels. The scientific community finds no credible evidence supporting deliberate chemical spraying by aircraft. And number three, aircraft design and logistics make it impractical. The idea of secretly retrofitting thousands of commercial or military planes to carry and spray chemicals without leaking info or whistleblowers seems extremely unlikely. The logistics and secrecy involved would be massive and unsustainable. The chemtrail theory or conspiracy took off in the late 1990s. It really gained steam after the internet became widespread. In 1999, the U.S. Air Force published a fact sheet debunking chemtrails, which only fueled speculation, because why would they need to publish a fact sheet or deny anything if it wasn't true? At least that's what you would find on the internet. That's the kind of stuff you would find on the internet. Platforms like Above Top Secret, I don't know what that is, but it's like a social media thing, and YouTube, and early Facebook groups allowed people to share photos of skies, compare notes, and build community. Videos with ominous music and shaky cam footage made it feel personal and urgent. And after events like 9/11, growing distrust in government and mainstream media made people more likely to believe in secret programs. Chemtrails became part of a broader ecosystem of truth-seeking movements. The psychology behind the belief in chemtrails and many other conspiracies has to do with a concept of pattern recognition and cognitive bias. Humans are wired to find patterns even where none exist. It's called apophenia. Seeing grids or unnatural clouds makes the sky look suspicious, and confirmation bias helps people filter out contrary evidence. There's also a need for control in a complex world for most people. When life feels chaotic or overwhelming, conspiracies offer simple explanations. Believing that something is or someone is pulling the strings can feel more comforting than accepting randomness or uncertainty, like climate change just being complex. And then community and identity are big factors. For many, being part of a truth-seeking group is empowering and affirming. It provides identity, belonging, and a sense of purpose. We know something the masses don't. Doubting it can feel like betrayal. So I know a lot of times I make analogies to things that maybe some people don't get, but this is how my brain works. And so much of what we're talking about today, you can dig deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. The rabbit holes are endless, and there's lots of little offshoots and tunnels that come from each one of these conspiracies. And you can just spend your whole life, searching and researching and hunting for something that makes it make sense or proves it or disproves it or whatever it is you're looking for. But I can't help when I think about these kind of conspiracies, because I don't know either what I think about chemtrails. I don't feel like they're natural. I do know there is a natural phenomenon of exhaust. Again, if it's a car exhaust, you got a hot air coming out of your tailpipe and it's freezing cold outside, you're going to see the smoke. Or you go outside when it's cold and you're breathing or talking and you see the condensation, the little smoke coming out of your mouth. I get that, but I don't understand why it doesn't happen every day, even if the conditions are the same. I know there can be changes or differences between upper atmospheric temperatures and stuff, but again, in my experience, it just seems like there are times when 2 or 3 days in a row, there's all these chemtrails, and then there's nothing again for however long. And I cannot help but think, even when you read reports or there's a statement by whoever's in charge that, it's a harmless thing, we're just doing this testing, blah, blah, blah. Tell that to all the mothers of thalidomide babies back in the day. Tell that to the people who were born to those mothers. Oh, it's harmless. It's a safe drug. There's not going to be a problem. So at some point, anything that is later determined to be dangerous or inappropriate or cancer causing or whatever we're going to find out that means it should stop, for all of those things, there was a time when it was just being tested, when it was believed to be safe. Okay? So you got to keep that in mind. With all of these things, I think that's part of what you have to keep in mind. Just because somebody doesn't know something doesn't mean it's still not a bad idea for it to be happening. So, that's the story on or the conspiracy about chemtrails. We have a few more to go. Here's one I'm sure you've heard of.
In the shadowy corners of history, whispers of a secret society known as the Illuminati have persisted for centuries. Originating in 1776 Bavaria, the Illuminati was founded by Adam Weishaupt, a professor seeking to promote Enlightenment ideals and challenge religious and political oppression. The task was to infiltrate and influence powerful institutions, aiming to create a society governed by reason and equality. However, the group was outlawed by the Bavarian government just a decade later, forcing them underground. Despite their official disbandment, rumors of their continued existence spread, fueled by conspiracy theories suggesting their involvement in global events, from revolutions to economic crises. These theories claim the Illuminati manipulate world affairs, positioning themselves as puppet masters behind governments and corporations. While evidence remains elusive, the legend endures, captivating imaginations and sparking debates about power and secrecy. The significance of the Illuminati legend lies not in its factual basis, but in its reflection of societal fears and the enduring allure of hidden knowledge and control.
All right, the Illuminati. So the first thing that comes to mind when I hear about the Illuminati is that Eyes Wide Shut movie that Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman were in together. That's a weird movie. And these may not be related at all. So my perception of the Illuminati, even now that I've done some research on it, there may not be connections at all. But that whole secret society, maybe, not so healthy objectives, or what it costs to be part of it, could be the same. And so this one, I know it's still part of our culture. It's still a part of what some people fear or are intrigued by or disapprove of, whether it's happening or not. But I think history bears out that these kind of groups and societies and secret clubs and stuff, they happen. They're real. And so just like the video told us, there was the Illuminati back in the 1700s that didn't hang around very long, or so we think. As the AI narrator said, they were forced underground. So obviously, if you've got goals of, humanitarianism and altruism and things that anybody would think are noble and worthy causes, why would it be a problem for somebody? So I would imagine there's a whole lot more to the story than we know already. I don't know that I'm going to be able to shed much more light on it, but there are definitely connections or alleged connections, apparent connections between groups like that and, the church. So the church as in a more universal religion as a governing kind of body thing, not like your local church down the street. And then the monarchy. So, and when I say monarchy, typically I mean British monarchy, but there, throughout history, lots of countries have operated under a monarchy. And I don't think it takes much research to figure out that there were a lot of less than healthy relationships between the church and the monarchy or the government, and some of these groups that over time a lot of people have come to fear and again disapprove of. So even though that first Bavarian Illuminati, it didn't sound like too bad of a thing, right? Again, they had some what sounded like noble causes. But the Illuminati of today, my perception has always been that it's more of a personal gain thing, that people become a part of it because there are rich and powerful people that are a part of it that can boost them in their career or take them to new levels of financial wealth and opulence. So the early conspiracies, though, about that Bavarian Illuminati happened between the late 1700s and the early 1800s. So after the French Revolution, some people, especially in monarchist and religious circles, blamed the Illuminati for orchestrating the chaos of the French Revolution. Thinkers like Augustin Barruel and John Robison wrote tracts warning that the Illuminati were behind revolutionary uprisings. This is where the idea of the Illuminati as a secret force manipulating world events began to take hold. So again, this has been going on. The conspiracies about it have been going on for a long time. There was a 20th century version of all this stuff where in the 1970s, authors Robert Shea and Robert Anton Wilson wrote the Illuminatus Trilogy, a bizarre satirical psychedelic novel that mixed real conspiracies with fiction, absurdity, and humor. It introduced ideas like the Illuminati controlling governments and banks, Discordianism, which is joking as philosophy, and the number 23 and other numerological symbols and terms and concepts. It was meant to parody conspiracy thinking, but ironically, it helped to fuel it. So in modern myth, particularly like hip-hop culture, pop culture, the internet, like everyday things that seem to infiltrate everywhere you go. In the 2000s and the 2010s, the myth exploded online thanks to YouTube forums and viral memes. Suddenly, the Illuminati were behind 9/11, and the music industry, especially Jay-Z, Beyonce, and Rihanna, and Hollywood symbolism like the Eye of Providence. So symbols like triangles and eyes and owls became shorthand for Illuminati confirmed. Again, I don't know. And that's never going to be a part of my world, so maybe I don't need to know, but I don't think ignorance is the answer to anything, really. So things that support Illuminati conspiracy theories. Symbolism in pop culture. Conspiracy theorists point to recurring symbols like the all-seeing eye, the pyramids, and references to light or awakening in music videos, movies, and logos, for example, on the US dollar bill. And these are seen as secret signals that elites are part of a hidden power structure. Also, the influence of groups like Freemasons and the Bavarian Illuminati did exist, often with secretive rituals and powerful members. The real Bavarian Illuminati that was founded in 1776 had the idea that elites secretly organized behind the scenes, or created the idea that elites secretly organized behind the scenes, which doesn't seem far-fetched to some. And then there are the celebrity induction stories. Some claim that famous artists or influencers suddenly rise to fame after joining the Illuminati. So like overnight success, or suddenly these people are doing these weird gestures, the triangle with their hands, and they're acting different and dressing different. And the theory goes that success comes at a cost, such as selling your soul. But here are some things that challenge the Illuminati conspiracy theories. One, there's no concrete evidence. Despite all the talk, there's zero verified proof of a cultural global Illuminati controlling governments or celebrities. Claims rely heavily on speculation, symbolism, and anecdotal links. Nothing is verifiable. And many so-called Illuminati symbols have historical or artistic origins unrelated to conspiracies. For example, the pyramid and eye on the US dollar bill were designed long before modern Illuminati theories were meant to symbolize any kind of divine guidance. The theory thrives because any denial is seen as part of the cover-up. So if you deny it, you're brainwashed. If you joke about it, you're hiding something. If you ignore it, it's a classical Illuminati move. So the circular logic just keeps people, there's like no way out. You get in and you think it's a thing, and nobody can say or do anything to make you not think it's a thing, because you can translate anything they say or do into proof that it's a thing. So that's our little lesson on the Illuminati for today. And here comes one that maybe you're not as familiar with. Oh, I was supposed to put myself up big while we were talking. Oh, I'm supposed to do that, yeah, because I'm supposed to tell you what I think about. What do I think about the Illuminati? Like, I don't think there's an organized, named thing. I do totally, 100% believe that there are, I don't know if I want to call them secret societies, but I do think that there are groups, exclusive groups, and it probably does take a lot to get into those groups, And there probably are big rewards for the people that get into those groups. And they do have a lot of influence because the people in them are very wealthy and very powerful and very well known, maybe very well liked. I think that's sometimes why there's so much satisfaction when, you know, some big person gets caught doing something. Maybe satisfaction isn't the word, because it just reinforces again the belief that, at least for me, that yes, there are people that are parts of these groups. I'm not going to call it a society. These groups that do things that other people can't do, wouldn't do, whether it's because of finances or ethics or morality or whatever. So I know those people are there, and the like-minded ones, I'm sure, have a way of finding each other. And then, just like with a lot of healthy, everyday groups and organizations, they help each other out, they help them advance in their careers, or, again, meet their financial goals, or, you know, whatever is important to them. So I think it's, that concept is legit. I just don't know if what we're expected to believe about the Illuminati. I don't know what I think about that. But let's go on to the next thing now that may be, again, a little bit newer to you.
Scientists say it's possible that people with this rare blood type have alien DNA in their bodies. For as long as humans have existed, there have been 8 common blood types: A, AB, B, and O, with each having a positive and negative trait. These only vary based.
Are we back? Okay, we're back. Hallelujah. So I still don't have chat on my screen, on my like studio screen. I had to go to YouTube to pull the chat up, but if you're still with me, thank you for hanging out with me and waiting out this silly, I don't know if it's an internet problem. At some point during the stream also, my computer switched itself to the 2.4G internet. Maybe that's not a big deal, but I do feel like I get better streaming if I use the 5G internet that we have. But I can't chat here in the studio, so I'll have to just chat from here. But I want to continue with the show, so hopefully other people will pop in, or those of you that might still be hanging out will continue to hang out with me. Let's go to our next conspiracy theory topic. Again, let me know if you've heard of it.
Now we're learning that scientists and researchers are looking at how to change the weather on purpose. That's right. Lasers now could one day manipulate rain and lightning. Yes, this morning contributor Michio Kaku is a physics professor at City College of New York. Professor, nice to see you. Nice to see you. Extraordinary. Well, this fascinates me in part because too I remember reading the stories that China had used this during the Olympics, that the USSR had used this after Chernobyl to create rain clouds. I mean, did those really work then? We have some of these capabilities now?
Inconclusive. Even in the 60s, the CIA used this to bring down monsoons during the Vietnam war to wash out the Viet Cong. Governments have been
Was
playing
alleged
this
to.
thing.
Alleged to.
Alleged to, right?
Yeah.
Now, we realize that for decades now, these governments have been alleged to have experimented with weather control, but nothing conclusive. This time we're digging into the laws of physics rather than simply waving our hands and uttering mumbo jumbo. We're actually using trillion-watt lasers now. And in the laboratory, sure enough, they precipitate rain out of water vapor. Sure enough, you can actually bring down electricity down the beam.
So what does it mean for drought areas that need to have rain for crops? If they don't have them, there's the consequences of famine.
Well, the bad news is if it's a clear blue sky, it's not going to do anything at all, because it only takes water vapor that's already in the air and condenses it. However, for flood,
they don't have them. There's the consequences of famine.
Agriculture, farmers, for people finding waiting parties, football games, you name it, outdoor events and agriculture and flooding and even hurricanes. All of them could be subject to weather modification.
Incredibly interesting, Professor Michio Kaku. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know what it is. I feel like the videos that I've played were more problematic than the rest of it. I hope that's the case. Of course, I don't have a window open again because I'm trying not to use so much bandwidth by keeping my little test window open, but I am going to open it and just see if this looks a little smoother. We have a new router, and I haven't figured out now if I'm going to, I don't know what it, if I'm going to connect the computer directly to the router or the modem. Maybe it's the modem I have to connect it to. Oh well, I might look into that for next week's stream. But let's get back to HARP. If you're not familiar with HARP, oh wow, I didn't realize I closed that other window. So let me open up my notes on HARP. I think I was just frantically closing things to make sure that I didn't have something open that was causing a problem with the stream. It's just interesting that, where'd my HARP thing go? Here it is. We did okay for the first half of the stream. All right, so talking about HARP, which stands for High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. It's one of the most misunderstood and mythologized scientific projects in modern conspiracy lore. And you know, Akashi Chris could be right. There's always that possibility that, you know, the censor universe out there knows I'm talking about conspiracy theories. There's a conspiracy theory for you. And they're giving me a hard time for it. So, one of the most misunderstood and mythologized scientific projects in modern history. The technology used was primarily developed based on the work of physicist Bernard Eastland, who is often credited with laying the foundation for the project's key concepts. He held a patent, a U.S. patent in 1987 for a method and apparatus for altering a region of the Earth's atmosphere, the ionosphere, and or the magnetosphere using high-frequency radio waves. His ideas were inspired in part by earlier work by Nikola Tesla, but Eastland's innovations were more directly related to ionospheric manipulation. While Eastland's patent and proposals weren't fully realized in HARP as he had envisioned them, his concepts influenced the direction of ionospheric research and helped spark the collaboration between the U.S. Air Force, the Navy, and DARPA that led to the construction of HARP in the early 1990s. It was built and operated by a combination of military and academic institutions, including the University of Alaska Fairbanks, which now fully manages it. So regarding DARPA, I didn't know a lot about DARPA before studying up for today. DARPA stands for the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. It's a U.S. government agency under the Department of Defense, and its job is basically to develop cutting-edge, often futuristic technologies for national security. It was founded in 1958, originally in response to the Soviet launch of Sputnik. Its mission is to make pivotal investments in breakthrough technologies for national defense, and it's famous for being way ahead of the curve. DARPA projects often seem like science fiction until they become real. Some of the things that DARPA has helped to create is the internet. It was called the ARPANET before it was called the internet. GPS technology, stealth aircraft, self-driving cars, and robotics like the Boston Dynamics wild robot dogs, and brain-machine interfaces. It's even been involved in mRNA vaccine technology because it helped fund that project. They're basically the Pentagon's mad science division. High risk, high reward. If it's weird, futuristic, and has national defense potential, DARPA's probably poked at it. So things that support a HAARP conspiracy, that HAARP is being used to create weather and cause natural disasters and potentially influence the way people think or behave, like mind control stuff. So here are some things that support that belief. Mysterious technology and secretive vibe. HAARP, based in Alaska, was a joint project between the Air Force, the Navy, and various universities. It studies the ionosphere using high-powered radio waves, and since the tech isn't widely understood, it feels secretive and suspiciously high-tech. Conspiracy theorists also believe that HAARP can alter the weather, as in causing hurricanes or droughts or earthquakes, and that it can disrupt human brain waves or trigger mass unrest. They believe it can jam communications or manipulate the atmosphere militarily. The fear is that HAARP is a tool for Okay, reconnection successful. So I'm going to keep talking, and hopefully you guys will catch up with me. I just have a black screen right there. Okay, why does this keep happening? Okay, this is really frustrating. Catch up with me. I just have a black screen right there. I hope I'm back. It says reconnection successful. But here are 3 things that discredit HAARP conspiracy theories. It's been public and peer-reviewed. It's not a black site. It's been visited by media, scientists, and university researchers. Its data and experiments are often published in scientific journals. And the project was even transferred to the University of Alaska Fairbanks and opened to the public in 2015. HAARP's transmitter outputs only a fraction of the power needed to alter weather systems or tectonic plates. How do they know that? It's like trying to warm the ocean with a space heater. The physical limits of the tech make grand-scale manipulation extremely unlikely. The ionosphere is a thin, high-altitude layer of charged particles, not where weather happens, which is mostly in the troposphere. HAARP studies how solar radiation and radio waves interact with this layer, not how to control the climate or mines. But I did want to look, because earthquakes, that came up, hurricanes and earthquakes, and so I did a little more digging. Conspiracy theorists believe that HAARP is capable of more than just studying the ionosphere. They claim it has the power to trigger earthquakes and manipulate geological activity, and here's how those theories go. The theory often references Nikola Tesla, who was rumored to have developed powerful technology capable of manipulating frequencies and resonating with the Earth's natural vibrations. Some believe HAARP is based on Tesla's work, particularly his experiments with electromagnetic energy. The claim is that HAARP could use these same principles to trigger earthquakes by sending out high-frequency radio waves that resonate with the Earth's crust. Some conspiracy theorists point to natural disasters like the 2010 Haiti earthquake or the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami claiming that these events occurred right after HAARP was activated. They argue that HAARP's electromagnetic pulses could have triggered seismic activity, although scientific consensus attributes these disasters to natural tectonic processes. And the idea that HAARP could be a weapon of geoengineering warfare is a big part of this conspiracy. Supporters believe the U.S. government or other secret elites could use HAARP to destabilize countries by creating earthquakes, hurricanes, and other extreme weather events. This would make the Earth an unpredictable weapon of war, all based on altering the natural forces of the planet. And that, again, this is one that has fingers in a lot of different things. The whole conspiracy about 5G, the 5G impact on brain waves and mind control, and how radio waves can be used to mind control. There's a great X-Files episode, I don't remember the name of it, where the machines start talking to people, like you're running your credit card through a machine, or you're at the bank at the ATM, and then this message comes up on the screen. And then there was another episode, maybe it's the same episode, where there was some kind of entity that had put subliminal stuff through electric poles and things, and messages would come through the TV. Or wow, I need to watch that. I need to watch that series straight through again. It's been a while. So if we bring it all together, in the wild world of conspiracy theories, HAARP, earthquake weapons, and 5G brainwave manipulation are often seen as components of a larger system of control by a shadowy elite group. Geoengineering conspiracists believe HAARP is secretly being used as a weapon to destabilize countries through manipulated natural disasters like earthquakes, hurricanes, and tsunamis, all for political or geopolitical control or military advantage. And then regarding psychological warfare theories, conspiracy theorists say that HAARP and 5G networks are being used for mind control through electromagnetic manipulation, which is rooted in the fear that governments or corporations have the ability to influence, control populations on a mass scale. And people believe this theory and these kind of theories due to fear of the unknown. That's common. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with how you think or process experiences or the world, just like chemtrails and things like that. So fear of unseen forces controlling us or the world around us can really, really feed these sorts of conspiracies. And theories like this also combine real scientific concepts like radio waves and electromagnetic frequencies with science fiction themes and concepts like mind control and superweapons. And the boundary between fact and fiction can get blurry for some people. These conspiracies also play into our collective dystopian fears of technology becoming too powerful or weaponized. The idea that tools like HAARP and 5G could be used for nefarious purposes reflects concerns over privacy, autonomy, and governmental control. All right, we're going to go to our last one. Cross your fingers. It's just a short video, but we'll see what happens.
Is Bigfoot the guardian of the wilderness or just a myth? In the dense, mysterious forests of the Pacific Northwest, an enigma lurks, shrouded in legend and whispers. Bigfoot. For decades, tales of this elusive creature have echoed through the hills, captivating the imagination of explorers and skeptics alike. Sightings have been reported and footprints discovered, but the truth remained elusive. Until one day, a team of intrepid researchers stumbled upon an abandoned cabin deep in the heart of the wilderness. There, amidst dusty books and forgotten artifacts, they found a journal belonging to an enigmatic figure known only as the Watcher. The journal spoke of a secret pact between humans and Bigfoot, a silent alliance forged to protect the wilds from mankind's destructive ways. The revelation shocked the researchers, and they vowed to unravel the mystery further. But just as they were about to disclose their findings, the journal disappeared in mysterious events, leaving only a confusing question. Does the truth hide in plain sight, or are some secrets meant to remain untold? What are your thoughts on the enigma of Bigfoot?
Yes, what are your thoughts on the enigma of Bigfoot? There's a lot to it. There are a lot of people that have attempted to get in on the bandwagon, and there are a lot of fakers, but there, I think, is also an equal number of people who have what looks like compelling evidence, and they are, reputable people of sound mind who've had experiences and have witnessed things that, it's definitely a toss-up. But again, we'll talk about my take on it here in just the end. So things that support a belief in Bigfoot are, number one, eyewitness accounts. Thousands of people across North America have reported sightings of a large ape-like creature, often in remote forested areas. These sightings have been consistent in physical description over the decades, so everybody's seeing the same or a very similar thing. Casts of large human-like footprints, some with dermal ridges, have been found, especially in the Pacific Northwest, and some researchers argue that these prints show features that would be very hard to fake. And then cultural consistency. Indigenous tribes, even in North America, have passed down legends of large hairy forest beings for generations, long before Bigfoot entered popular culture. These stories often closely align with modern reports. But things that make it unlikely that Bigfoot is real is simply a lack of evidence. No bodies, no bones, or biological material have ever been found or verified, despite decades of searching and the creature supposedly being quite large. No clear photos or videos. Despite the rise of smartphones and trail cameras, we still lack clear, unambiguous footage of Bigfoot. Most available videos are blurry or easily dismissed as hoaxes. And then scientific consensus is a big part of what would make it unlikely that it's real. The broader scientific community generally dismisses Bigfoot due to the absence of verifiable evidence, and many proofs like footprints or hair samples have been debunked or linked to hoaxes. So my first thought regarding Bigfoot is that every time I hear a report about a new unknown species, or up till now unknown species in the jungles of the Amazon or in the depths of the ocean, then I think, why is it so outside the realm of possibility that there is an unknown species, that there's these limited pieces of evidence, the witness accounts and the casts of the footprints, and again, some of those are hoaxes, I know that. That's true with anything. There's always that fringe group looking for their 15 minutes that even if, it's obvious, that the thing is not real, there are going to be those people that are looking to make a name for themselves by creating something to keep them in the news. But just that fact alone, that there are, and even now, there are still species to be discovered. Does that not blow your mind? It's 2025, and there are still creatures to be discovered. Sometimes in environments that are really hard for humans to access. Sometimes, again, just because there aren't a lot of them. So obviously the opportunities for sightings or encounters would be minimal. So I feel like I have every reason to believe it's a real thing. Again, based on eyewitness testimony, and a lot of the people that have had encounters or have claimed to see a Bigfoot, they're good people, they're reputable people, they're emotionally healthy people, they're respected people. Some of them are, wildlife experts or biologists, people that you would think have an edge when it comes to determining if something they're looking at is real or not. Guys, you need to settle. Thank you. So that holds a lot of weight for me. But when I combine that, I don't know a lot about the footprints. And I do know that there have been plenty of stories of people that faked the footprints and took a cast and all that. But when I just combine the first-hand accounts of people that have seen this creature with the fact that there are still new species of animals being discovered, maybe not every day, but routinely on Earth, even in places where people do go. It wasn't that long ago that there was this brand new species of spider identified in Australia or something. You know, and the deeper we're able to go in the ocean, the more sophisticated our underwater equipment and, you know, vehicles and cameras and things get, the more stuff we're finding near the bottom of the ocean that nobody knew existed anymore. So I think it's totally possible. As far as not being able to find evidence like bodies or bones or things like that, obviously they're smart if they have managed to stay undetected for this long. So why does anybody not consider that they just they don't leave bodies laying around? They don't leave the bones laying around. They have ways of taking care of those things, primarily to avoid detection. And I want to believe. And again, just like with so much of the other stuff that we've talked about today, just because we don't know or understand or appreciate something today, it doesn't mean it's not real. It doesn't mean it's not legitimate. It doesn't mean it's not important. It doesn't mean it's not valuable. There could be a day, maybe it'll be hundreds of years from now, and people will look back and then think, oh, how silly were they that they didn't know this, or that they didn't believe this, or that they didn't see it or understand it. Which is part of our what word am I looking for? Disadvantage as humans. So many humans, too many humans, think they're the end-all be-all, that we're the most superior species in the universe or on the planet, and that we have some sort of special ability that makes us smarter and more capable, and I don't think that at all. We're animals just like every other animal, and we all have talents and gifts and characteristics to bring to the table that, you know, can be used for good, but aren't always used for good. I watched a video, you may have seen it. It was San Francisco or San Diego. There was an earthquake. I don't know if it was related to this most recent earthquake or not. But at a zoo somewhere on the West Coast, the elephants, as soon as an earthquake started, all of the elephants in the elephant exhibit gathered together, because there was one or two, not babies, but young elephants in the herd. And what the elephants do when there's an earthquake is I think it may have just been the females. They put the babies in the middle of this like circle of the elephants, and then all the adult elephants stand, you know, facing out, facing away. So their back ends are to the babies that are inside the circle, protected. You know, whether it works or not is irrelevant. If the earth is going to crack open underneath us, it's going to crack open underneath us. But instantly, when the rumbling began, these elephants went to assume this position and create this hedge of protection around these young elephants. And I'm just reminded every day that nature proves to us that we have no superiority just because we have different DNA. In their way, they accomplish as much or more. Because, in fact, they accomplish more. Because they don't have the same, you know, like no opposable thumbs or, you know, things that physically are different about them that, you know, again, maybe give us an advantage, but it doesn't mean we're superior. Oh, there's a whole nother thing. So I think Bigfoot's legit. I think a lot of this stuff is legit. I'm a conspiracy nut. And part of how I decided what next week's stream is going to be is because some of the things that I came across as I was researching for today's show had a lot to do with sci-fi. A lot of technologies that came from sci-fi, a lot of concepts and ideas that came from sci-fi, and then over time they get turned into real, everyday, practical devices and technologies and such. So next week's show, we're going to look at some instances where science fiction became reality. There's a whole lot more than what I'm going to be able to share with you next week. We'll probably do the wheel again next week because I think that one will be simple enough. It's not going to be all these long explanations and lists of the fors and againsts. It's just going to be a fun look at how science fiction literature. I'm sure there's other things in art and literature that have impacted what reality is like now, maybe, decades or centuries later. But science fiction is near and dear to my heart, and I don't know that a lot of people realize that so much of what we have at our disposal today, so much of what we take for granted because it's everywhere, came from somebody that at the time people thought was a nut because he or she wrote about it in a sci-fi story, or because someone who created an old TV show had this, one episode that was about this thing that people thought, oh, that's ridiculous. How stupid. Why would anybody think that that could ever happen? And now we have it, and now we use it every day. So I hope you guys will stop in and check out some of those next week. I have another playthrough live scheduled for late night on Tuesday next week to do chapters 2 and 3 of the Phantasmagoria game that I'm playing. I'm having fun with that. It's totally retro. Been a long time since I played through it, and I'm studying up so that you can actually watch me accomplish more than just wander around and try to figure out what I'm supposed to do or where I'm supposed to go. So I hope you'll stop in and say hi before you go to bed on Tuesday night. And then I've got my next couple of live stream ideas are in my head now, but I've just got to get the thumbnails made and get the streams created so that they'll pop up on my page and you'll know what to expect. It is so humid here. Y'all, my hair on the back of my neck, I almost just went to find a ponytail. Oh, it sounds like we have Canada geese in the backyard. Almost went to get a ponytail to get my hair off the back of my neck. It's so hot and humid here today. Oh, I don't know if it's any warmer than the 81 degrees it was at the beginning of the stream. We'll find out. But it's definitely more humid than it was at the beginning of the stream. So it's clouding up. It looks like it's just 83 now. So not much warmer, but the humidity is definitely spiking. And when I have my hair down, well, my hair is so thick. It's very fine, but it's so ridiculously thick that it's like I'm wearing a fur coat on my head. So when I'm not doing live streams, my hair is up. I can't stand it down. So let me just say again, thank you for stopping in and hanging out with me for a little while. Thank you for watching while we were live. Thank you for being part of the rewatch crew. If you missed the show while it was live, leave me a comment. If you will, please like the stream, and I would love to hear what your thoughts are on some of these conspiracy theories and where you lie on the belief versus disbelief spectrum. I'm always taking suggestions on other ideas for live streams or videos, so share those with me as well. Be safe, be happy, be well, and don't forget, the moon is smaller than the sun. It's not rocket science, y'all. I love you. I'm going to go grab something to eat now and let the dogs out and get my hair up in a ponytail. And I'll see you Tuesday night for my Phantasmagoria playthrough. I love you guys. Bye.